So there are some slight spoilers in two of these, in both of these fanfictions, but I think the biggest spoiler is in the second one. So like, it doesn't specifically say anything, but if you want to be wary about spoilers, there's a spoiler for the Mark of Athena in the second fanfiction, like a slight one, and there's also some spoilers about Percy and Annabeth's relationship, like throughout all of them. So, hello, thank you for joining me. The audio is probably really bad because I'm filming on my phone because I need my iPad, which I usually film on to read the fanfiction, because that's what I'm doing. I'm doing part 3 of reading Percy Jackson fanfiction, mainly because those other 2 videos where I read Percy Jackson fanfiction are my most popular videos on my channel, and also it's a good excuse to read fanfiction without getting judged. So yeah, also me and my friend Annie over at Chelsea by Asia did a live stream on her channel earlier today. Go and rewatch that if you want. Yeah, anyway. I don't know why I waved. Whatever. Bye. No. Okay. So, we're on Wattpad. So, this is a series called Percybeth One Shots, Collection 1 Complete, by someone called Captain Mercy on Wattpad. So this is the first one, and it's called The Bestest Cook Ever, Don't Tell Mum. Okay. Okay. Percy's POV, Percybeth. When Annabeth decides to make Percy the best birthday meal ever, he won't give up. No, she won't give up. Percybeth is already married. I know, Mum, I'll be over later. Yes, I promise that I won't forget. Fine, text her if you don't trust me. Love you too. Bye. I chuckled slightly as my mum hung up. I aka slashed through the Iris message. She wanted me to come over for my 24th birthday, even though I was old enough to just pop by for cake and be on my way. She insists on throwing me a party. It's kind of irritating, since my idea of a good birthday would be relaxing on the couch with my wife, watching Nemo and eating blue cookies. But I love my mum, and it was always good seeing my friends. I stepped out of the car, since I'd already parked when my mum called, and bounded up the stairs to mine and Annabeth's house. It had a classical vibe to it, even though Annabeth had designed it, and yes, we were in the 21st century. A few months after we had moved in together, which was when we were 18, Annabeth was called to Olympus. Okay, so far, 24, kind of, almost 24, it's his birthday. Percy and Annabeth are married, always good. I mean, I kind of like it so far. Okay, now I know what you're thinking. Uh-oh, Annabeth made a boo-boo. Right? No, she didn't. She was called to Olympus because they decided to tell her about a few perks of her job as the architect of Olympus. Not only would she go down in history, but she would also be paid big bucks. Well, good enough anyway. We weren't filthy rich, but we were well off. I went to college that year, majoring in marine science, and I did so well with Annabeth's help that I graduated. I did so well with Annabeth's help that I graduated a year early. It's like, I wish. I still had to do all 4 years of college to get my degree, but soon after I landed a job at a local marine hospital, taking care of the poor creatures that were hurt or injured. Okay, so I think this was written before the Tower of Nero came out, because in the Tower of Nero it says how they both went off to college in New Rome. I don't actually remember what Percy studied. I'm sick. So Annabeth majored, I think it's called majored, I don't even know, in architecture, and then Percy was in marine biology or aquaculture, he doesn't know. Something like that. I think they're the same thing. Marine biology, we'll say. But I think this was written. Anyway, Annabeth was still architect of Olympus, but she had said she wanted another job. I tried to tell her not to apply at places that would make her stressed, but she went ahead and started working at Good with Paul. She was a history teacher. We'd gotten married last year after saving up to build this house. I didn't think she'd be a history teacher. Let me just say, best day ever. I quickly unlocked the red door to our house, bounding in and kicking my shoes off before shooting into the living room. No, Annabeth must be in her office. I ran in there, ready to scoop her up, but she wasn't there. Confused, I walked into our bedroom. Nothing. If the kitchen hadn't have been on the way to the porch, I would have bypassed her. She was sitting on the counter, quietly mixing some kind of batter while listening to an audiobook on her monster-proof phone. She looked up and almost dropped the bowl of dough. You weren't supposed to be home for another hour, Annabeth said, as she jerked out her earbuds and tried to hide the bowl behind her. I played like I hadn't seen the bowl. I wanted to see my beautiful wife, and they let me go early. I smiled, coming up to her and placing my hands on either side of her as she sat on the counter. Also, by the way, I'm sorry if I'm talking really fast. I just read pretty fast. So, yeah, I'm sorry. During this time, I managed to dunk my finger in the dough, assuming it's for cookies or something, and backed away, licking the batter off my finger. Perseus, she shouted, pouting adorably. Oh, I love how she calls him Perseus. You weren't supposed to know yet. I laughed. I always thought she was cuter when sulking. This is really good. I raised my finger in the air. You know, you should cook more often. I always love it when she cooks, even though she hates it. But she's always so tired after working 2 jobs, so I just cook for her instead, or grab takeout. Annabeth rolled her eyes, swatting my hand as I tried to grab the bowl off the counter. No, bad Percy. Now it was my turn to pout. I swooped in to kiss her, but she dodged, making me kiss her cheek instead. Come on, is our anniversary? I groaned. She laughed, shaking her head, as she went back to mixing the batter. We'd started dating on my birthday exactly 8 years ago. We've been married for 1 year of it. I would never have guessed that the kiss in the dining pavilion was with the girl that would become my wife. I might have wished, but I never would have thought I'd actually marry her. I figured she'd end up with someone else that actually deserved her, with every single one of her perfections. Oh, I love how he doesn't... Oh, that's cute. But no one deserved her. It took me years to realise that maybe I did deserve her. Maybe I did because I deserved to be happy, and there wasn't a god above that could make me happy if my wise girl was gone. Said girl looked up and caught me staring and started to smirk, causing my cheeks to heat up slightly. Married for a year and she can still make me blush for no reason. Oh, shut up, I mumbled, going to sit beside her. My hip caught the side of the large bowl on her lap and it tumbled into my arms. I caught it quickly, but it had sloshed onto Annabeth's stomach and lap. Seaweed brain, she screamed. Jumping up, I ran for my life. Goodbye, world. I could hear her behind me, catching up fast, but I had the advantage of longer legs. I booked it upstairs and down the hall. I wouldn't be able to make it into either of the 2 doors before she caught me, so I was trapped when I slammed into the wall. She stopped running and smirked again, approaching slowly. Let me tell you, absolutely terrifying. Have I ever told you how much I love you? She asked sweetly, but the grin on her face wasn't as sweet. I gulped. She laughed and ran forward, throwing her arms around me. Oh, Annabeth, I groaned, as I looked down at my batter-covered pants and shirt. She smiled and tried to walk away in victory, but I grabbed her and slung her over my shoulder in one movement. Percy, she screeched. I walked slowly down the stairs. Put me down, right now, she yelled into my ear. Please, she whispered. I knew if I turned my head I'd see her pouting in the way I can't say no to, so I kept my eyes firmly ahead. She huffed and crossed her arms. Now you're going to finish the cake or cookies or whatever, because it's my birthday and you're the bestest cook ever. Don't tell my mum, I teased. And sure enough, we were in the kitchen an hour later, eating the small cake with our fingers and kissing them in the midst of a very messy kitchen. Okay, so that was the first chapter. I think it was adorable. There are a couple of things that I didn't enjoy reading, just like the writing style. I don't know why, but there was something about it. Also, I feel like the title was a bit weird, but I think it was a kind of cute story. So, yeah. It's actually the fifth one, I think. Yeah, so it's what Sally would think as she met Annabeth's mum, Athena, because Sally is an awesome character that I love writing about. Sally's the best. You can take this as a Poseidon/Athena one-shot if you want, but that's not the point. It's more of how different Sally and Athena are. Besides, it just popped into my head like 10 minutes ago, so I had to write it. The first time Sally met Athena was the Christmas after the giant wall. Percy and Annabeth were sitting silently on the couch, sitting closely, but not so it would be too awkward for those around them. Paul was laughing with the satyr, Grover, and talking about saving the trees. Sally expected Poseidon to come, so when the doorbell rang, she was not surprised. Percy looked excited to see his dad, and Annabeth smiled at that. Sally stood to get the door, and Percy pulled his girlfriend along as he followed his mum. When she opened the door, Sally first saw Poseidon. He looked pretty much the same Bermuda shorts and Hawaiian shirt, along with a fisherman's hat. I think I need a cushion here. He'd grown out his beard more since the last time she saw him, but he wasn't smiling like normal. Then Sally saw the woman beside him, holding herself in such a regal manner it said clearly that she didn't want to be here. Sally almost felt like a kid, opening the door to two tall and intimidating adults, even though she was nearing on 50. The woman's hair was long and dark, but her eyes were the scariest thing about her. They were grey and stormy, but looked like she was thinking of every possible way to squish you. Sally knew that gaze. Annabeth wore it during battle, and sometimes when she was upset. Athena wore a black pantsuit with a grey shirt underneath. Annabeth had stiffened, and Sally could see Percy glance between the two and helplessly at his dad. Annabeth and her mother didn't break each other's gaze. Poseidon looked slightly pleased, as if he were getting what he wanted. "Ah, my son," he exclaimed, patting Percy's shoulder and stepping over to kiss Sally's cheek and make a face at Athena, who had looked away from her daughter. "Annabeth, I need to speak with you," Athena claimed, clasping her hands together. Annabeth stayed put for a second, showing her stubborn strength before turning on her heel and entering the house. Athena glided after her, radiating wisdom and confidence, but also slight guilt. "What?" Percy asked, looking extremely confused. Poseidon just laughed, walking into the house and plopping himself down next to Paul, who was looking at him with wide eyes. Sally wasn't sure if she liked Athena. The goddess seemed too serious and strict. Athena understood Annabeth, but was also slightly upset by her. Sally made sure to keep her eye on the two talking in the corner. Annabeth seemed slightly touched, while Athena seemed to feel uncomfortable. After a short time, Annabeth said something, and Athena looked surprised, then said something that looked like justice once. The two hugged slightly, then fully. The mother and daughter both had slight smiles on their faces. No matter if she was a goddess, Athena still had to love her daughter. Before the two came back, Sally saw Athena hand Annabeth something blue, and Annabeth held it in shock. But before she could react fully, Athena walked into the middle of the room and disappeared. An owl flew into the air and zoomed out of the window. Everyone was staring, slightly shocked, as Annabeth took her seat next to Percy. Paul just looked slightly confused. "Can you do that?" Percy asked with wide eyes. Annabeth glanced at him sideways, looking exasperated. No, I can't. That would have solved the whole Tartarus issue," she reminded Percy. Seaweed brain. She grinned, punching his shoulder. Sally noticed her slip something into her bag, a blue Yankees cap. Okay, so I feel like considering that, like, I know it was a Percy one-shot, but I feel like considering that was supposed to be about Sally and Athena meeting, and they didn't even, like, talk to each other, that was a bit disappointing. Also, I just kind of found it boring, because, like, yeah. Yeah, I don't have much else to say about it. Yeah. Okay. So, the next few are actually quite long, and I don't really want to read them out loud because my voice is hurting a little bit. So I'm not going to do any more, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. We're doing a live, me, Annie, and Zoe, from Book Hooked. We're doing a live on Zoe's channel, Book Hooked. I think next Saturday at 12 British time. So, yeah, make sure to watch that. yeah. Bye.